Hello, Taylor Elwood here, and welcome to Sacred Masculinity Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the topic about how you get off on situations that you don't like. And I know you're probably thinking, like, what the heck are you talking about, Taylor? What do you mean by that? How is it that I get off on situations that I don't like? That sounds pretty weird. Well, here's the truth of the matter. The thing is that we are all in situations where we have patterns that replicate again and again and again in our lives. And those patterns, some of them are healthy and some of them are unhealthy. But with all of them, we're getting something out of them. And recently, I've been reading this book called Existential Kink. I picked it up because I decided I wanted to really understand some of my own behaviors in a different light. Why was it that I continued to repeat unhealthy patterns in my life? Behaviors where I knew they were unhealthy, activities I didn't really, and behaviors where I'm responsible for them in the end. Like I'm the one who's responsible for them. I continue to choose certain patterns of behavior that I know are unhealthy. But why am I doing that? And I figured reading this book would give me some awareness. And boy, has it ever given me some awareness, because it's helped me to understand everything from why I have picked certain types of relationships to certain types of jobs to everything in between, and why there is a part of me that gets off on situations that I'm not happy with. Case in point, I have a job that I work at that I absolutely do not like. And this job is something I'm leaving at the end of August. But I had to really spend some time with why do I do this particular job? Why have I continued to work in a job that I really don't like? And what I came to the conclusion is, some part of me, after reading through Existential Kink, some part of me really gets off on being uncomfortable and unhappy because it justifies keeping me small. And that's the payoff. I am able to justify my victimhood, essentially. And when you're able to justify your victimhood and why certain things are the way they are and why you keep finding yourself in specific types of situations, then it actually feels good. It actually feels good. There is some part of you on an unconscious level that is getting off on the situations that you're in. And until you address that part of yourself and work with it, you're going to be separated. And if you're familiar with parts with interfamily dynamics or IFS, you know that there are different parts. Like we have different parts of ourselves, and some parts are protectors and some are firefighters. Some parts essentially are parts of ourselves that we are divorced from. Like they're there, but we don't have a conscious connection with them. And so, and that's where our shadow work comes into play. With shadow work, as we go into shadow work, we start to see, like, here's the ways that I sabotage myself. Here's the ways that I get, that I set myself up for situations. And, if you're fortunate, you can change some of that. You can change a lot of it, but it takes work, right? I decided to get into this because in the wake of my latest relationship not working out, I was kind of like, I need to figure out, like, why I chose a situation where I was continually getting denied something significant that I wanted, and settling for that and settling for breadcrumbs. And I'm not putting this on the other person. It's not. I mean, their issues are their own, but my issues amongst other things include settling for breadcrumbs. Like I keep getting into relationships where in one form or another, what I'm getting are the breadcrumbs instead of the feast. And I don't think that that's an inevitable reality. I think a lot of people settle for that because they think that's the best it can get. And I disagree with that. But until I resolve that unconscious part of myself that says, yeah, I get off on being denied, I get off on being in situations where I don't get what I want, I'm not going to be able to change that or transform it. And this was a significant realization that I had in the wake of this latest relationship, where I'm like, I spent the better part of a year not not getting laid, and when I did get laid, it was transactional. I had to pay for it in some form or manner, and it sucked. It really sucked. And I had to ask myself, well, why am I allowing myself to be in that kind of relationship? Why am I allowing myself, especially as someone who has been working and doing his work, why am I nonetheless, even though I'm doing this work, why am I nonetheless setting myself up for a shitty situation where I am doing the lion's share of the work, where I am essentially unhappy most of the time, where I'm thinking about sex every day because I want to have sex with this person and then they don't want to have sex with me. Like, why? What was getting me off on that? And I realized that a significant part of it through this existential kink work was that I get off on trying to get someone's approval and not getting, an unconscious part of me gets off on trying to get someone's approval and not getting that approval, knowing I can never be good enough. Because if I know that I'm never good enough, then it's okay for me to continually fail. It's okay for me to fuck up. It's okay for me to never become it's okay for me to never step up and become the person who deserves the feast. And so I can settle for the breadcrumbs. But I don't want to be that person. I don't want to settle for breadcrumbs. I want more. I want the feast. So how do I get that feast? Well, I have to step up. I have to change myself. I have to be willing to become the best person I can become. And no one else is going to make me do that, you know? And I shouldn't put that on somebody else. That's not fair to them. And I realized that significantly, I mean, that this kink is putting me into situations that are unfair to me and unfair to the other person. I mean, it wasn't fair to the other person that I was involved with. I'm responsible for my choices and my actions, and there were actions that I took that I look back on now and I'm like, yep, I shouldn't have done that. I should have handled things differently. Like, for one thing, I should have been like, hey, we should really do some couples therapy and really work through our respective issues together with a mediator to help us figure some of these things out and why things keep coming up. We didn't really do that. I should have stepped up and said, hey, certain behaviors that are occurring here are not making me happy. They aren't they don't feel healthy. And I need us to negotiate how this is going to work. Instead, I ended up engaging in some non-consensual activity with this person. And that's not right. It wasn't fair to her. It triggered her in certain ways. And it was me acting out. And that's immature on my part. And I own that. Like, I'm by no means letting myself off the hook here. But I realized that by doing this existential kink work, it's helping me see my blind spots and see, and it's not the only modality that I'm working with. It's just one among many, because being in a relationship where essentially the person closed themselves off from me in a lot of ways because they didn't trust me. I have to look at, like, well, why didn't they trust me? Now, some of that is their own issues, not mine, just their issues, and it's based on stuff that's gone on in their lives. But a lot of it is me. It might be how I'm triggering those issues. It might be things that I'm doing. It might be my own issues showing up. And that's where I have to take responsibility. I can't take responsibility for their issues because at the end of the day, that's their issues. That's their work to do. I can't fix them. I can't make them better. I can't, just like I can't make them want to be with me in a certain way. Like that's something they have to want to do. And if they don't feel that way, then, that's then they have to do what they need to do to take care of themselves. But I'm responsible for my behaviors. I'm responsible for not speaking up when something bothered me, or for not continuing to speak up. If I spoke up and then I felt shut down, well, I should have said something. I should have grown a pair of balls and spoken up, and I didn't. I'm responsible for falling apart, for not advocating for myself, for not speaking up, for not asking for things that I wanted. I will say in this latest relationship that I got better at it. Um, I got better at speaking up for certain things. But in a large one of the existential kink aspects that I have is around women's anger. When a woman's angry at me, I get off on that because then I know that like I won't get what I want. I won't be accepted. I won't be loved. And that will just confirm that I'm not good enough. And again, that's not how I want to go through the rest of my life, but there was this subconscious or unconscious part of myself that felt like that's what I needed to have verified for me. Well, now that I'm aware of that, I'm doing my work around it, and I'm going to keep doing my work around it, and I'm going to make sure that I become healed. And I mean, I'm going to level with you. You end up doing your work the rest of your lives. Like there's no way for me to there's no way I'll never not be doing my work. There's always going to be something to work on. But I want to get to a place where the really toxic patterns that I'm dealing with, the issues that are my unhealed wounds and things like that, that I've addressed them and I can recognize when they start to rear and I can say, you know what? This has nothing to do with you. This is a projection on my part. I'm recognizing it. I'm calling and naming it out. Here's where I need some help from you. Can you help me this way? And let's continue moving on. Let's continue moving forward because, hey, we want to have a great life together. And really, I don't, a huge part of this is like, I look and I'm like, I'm 47 years old. I'm going to be 48 this year. I don't want to be in another situation like this again with someone else. I mean, I know that at some point I'll meet someone else, more than likely, and that'll be in another relationship. But now this latest relationship is gone, and there were a lot of good things about it. There were things that weren't good about it. And not just some of the things that I mentioned, there were some other things, but there were good things about it too. And I'm sad because I really love and care about that person. We're taking a break for right now. And I hope we'll come out of this on the other side as friends, but I have to come to terms with my behaviors and choices in this. And that's one of the reasons I'm taking the break because I'm like, I need some time to really think about some things, to process what went wrong. I mean, and here's another interesting thing is I applied this model of existential kink to myself. And it's like, okay, well, where did you like we moved too fast. Both of us moved too fast. It wasn't her and it wasn't me, it was both of us. Well, what was going on with that? Well, I recognize in my particular case, I can't speak for them, but in my particular case, I can say that it was wanting a sense of certainty. It was neediness, it was codependency, and that's stuff I need to work through because I don't want that to happen again. So the more I sit with all of this, the more I realize, okay, here's the areas I need to work on with myself. And I think that this is absolutely essential for what we need to do as men. We need to be working on ourselves. We need to recognize the areas of our lives where we need to heal ourselves. We need to show up for ourselves. We need to parent ourselves the way that we weren't parented. And we need to be able to hold that space then for the person in our lives that shows up. and be able to hold them and witness them and and not react, as or at least do the best we can not to react from a place of woundedness, but instead choose our responses and be responsible for how we show up. And of course, they need to do all that too, but again, that's that person's work. Like I can't fix another person. You can't fix another person. And that's one thing that men try to do a lot of times. We try to fix other people. Well, the person we need to be fixing is ourselves if we're going to fix anyone. And then we just need to hold space and love that person and connect with that person. So, you know, this is one of those things you can apply to yourself. So look at your own life. What's a situation that you're settling for that you don't really like, but that you're comfortable with? I'm going to call this the comfortable discomfort. The comfortable discomfort is that feeling of comfort that we settle for. We don't like it, but we're okay with it. It's the status quo. So what is it that you're settling for that you want to change in your life? Why are you settling for it? What are you getting off on? What's getting you off? And you can apply this to um, you can apply this to really any kind of situation. The important thing is that you recognize it for what it is and you own it, because you cannot become a better person without taking ownership of like why you are where you are at. And you aren't a victim. There may be things that have happened, and sometimes there are things that will happen, and that you need to work through that and heal from that too. But you aren't a victim of your own choices. You are a perpetrator of your choices. And that may sound a little harsh and judgy, so let me just reframe that a little bit. Let me put it this way. Once we become knowingly and consciously aware of our patterns, we move that aren't healthy. We move away from being a victim, because those patterns were probably generational trauma, parental trauma, or some other kind of trauma, right? But we move away from that into, okay, if I continue to replicate this, then I'm victimizing myself and I'm victimizing the other person. I become a perpetrator at that point. And nobody wants to be that. Well, I don't think most people do anyway. So my advice is recognize when that comes up, own it, and take responsibility. You have the capacity to do that. You are a lot stronger than you might think you are. And existential kink is just one of the ways that we can actually do that. All right, thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. Oh yeah, and if you like this video and find it useful, please click subscribe and hit the notification bell as well, so that way you can come join in.